All right. Hey, you guys, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to the science of creating must-click content on Twitter. My name is Courtney Sider. I am the head of content marketing at Buffer, and we're really excited to come to you today with Twitter to talk about the science of must-click content. I'm here with Jimmy Hang. Jimmy, you want to say hi and introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Jimmy Hang, a marketing manager on Twitter's SMB team. I really focus on helping businesses like yours to really understand the value of Twitter and really to how to leverage Twitter to really drive your business growth. You could also find me on Twitter at Twitter Small Biz.
Excellent. So just a little bit about what we're going to do today. Jimmy and I have about 30 minutes or so of science and information and stuff we want to share with you. You can join in the conversation anytime on Twitter by using the hashtag #TweetScience. You'll see that at the bottom of all my slides there, and Jimmy's. Afterwards, we'll do about 15 minutes of Q&A, as much as we have time for. We'd love to hear your questions. You can submit those wherever you're watching. If you're on YouTube, you can comment as a question, and we'll check that out. If you're watching on Google+, you can do the same thing. Just post your question right there in the comments, and we'll be keeping an eye on those, and we'll try to get to as many of those as we can by the time we get to the end of things. So let's see what is on the agenda for today. So our agenda is pretty simple. We're going to talk about all the things that can make your tweets more powerful, more clickable, more shareable, more favorable. So that includes writing great tweets, the content, the voice, the tone, timing it right, what days of the week, what times of the day, what frequency works best, and measuring and testing. How do you know where you're doing well? How do you know where you can improve? How can you sort of move your content forward with Twitter? We're going to answer a lot of questions that both Twitter and Buffer hear often, and we're pretty excited to get started. First of all, we wanted to talk about why Buffer and Twitter on this particular webinar, why we would team up on this. And to do that, we should talk about why people follow on Twitter. Twitter users follow about 6 brands on Twitter on average. And that means that your audience wants to hear from you on Twitter as a brand. They want information from you. And as you talk to them, as you start that conversation, you may find that what they want to hear from you falls into maybe a few different buckets. So interesting and fun content, news, discounts, promotions, and more. Keeping up with all of that is where Buffer comes in. It's the easiest way to share consistently on social media, to see how your post performed, and make sure you're always getting better and better results. So we really jumped at the chance to team up with Twitter. Because Twitter is growing really, really fast. There are 255 million active users, tweeting so much every day. And mobile is really growing as a source as well. Lots of folks are accessing Twitter on a mobile device, and we'll talk more about what that means really soon. And one stat that's really interesting for us today is link clicks. Link clicks account for 92% of user interactions with tweets. So it really makes sense for us to do our very best as brand representatives to make sure that we're giving our audience what they want in terms of really clickable links in those tweets.
So building off on how Twitter is a fast-growing real-time network and why you should have a strong Twitter presence, it's important to keep in mind that your customers are actually on Twitter, and they can really take they can actually really take actions that actually benefit your business. We conducted a recent study with 1,000 SMBs in the US, and we found that overall 60% of respondents say they've made a purchase from an SMB based on something they saw on Twitter. In addition, 86% say they plan to purchase from a small business in the future. And finally, 43% of respondents plan to make multiple purchases from a business they follow on Twitter. So with these stats, it really demonstrates the importance of leveraging Twitter to connect with potential and future customers who can impact your top line. But before you start tweeting, we just wanted to cover off on a few things to really establish your business personality on Twitter. And it's important to consider that the conversations that you have with your customers every day can also happen on Twitter. And you can also approach these Twitter conversations in the same way, like you're talking to a good friend. So here are a few tips to keep top of mind. So you want to be professional without being overly formal. You want to strive for a really authentic and approachable communication style. Next, we all know that competition is tough wherever you go, so it's important for your business to really stand out. You want to share content that will pull followers in and encourage them to consume the content. Also, knowing the difference between voice and tone is key to effective tweeting. So voice doesn't change over time, but your business's tone should vary based on a situation. So if a follower did not have a positive experience, your business's tone may be more sympathetic to their situation. Finally, remember that don't just talk to people, but with them. You know, Twitter is a two-way conversation, so reply to @mentions and address both positive and negative feedback when you have a chance. You know, Twitter is a real-time network, so don't leave your customers waiting too long. So once you're ready to start tweeting, we want to give you a few tips to help you with your content strategy. So first, keep your tweets conversational. You know, you may be online, but you're still talking to customers, and more likely, more of them will see your content. So avoid using business jargon when possible. Also, think about how your content will be consumed by your followers. Would they want to retweet it or pass it along to their own followers? You know, to help encourage sharing, incorporate humor, inspiration, and newsworthy content to draw your followers in. Next, Courtney is going to cover off on a few viral words to potentially use in your tweets.
Awesome tips, Jimmy. He's totally right. Of course, your own content written in your brand's specific voice is the main idea to focus on for Twitter success. But Twitter is really powerful at driving amplification for brand messages, and that means retweets that share your message. In fact, 78% of user engagement with a brand's tweets comes in the form of retweets, according to Salesforce research. So if you want a little bit of help with that amplification potential, we're taking a look at a few different studies on words and phrases that have been proven to be more likely to help content spread. So on your left, you'll see a list of 3-word phrases. That is from a study by a company called Ripen. They looked at the most viral words and phrases on 4 different sites that focus specifically on viral content, like Upworthy and Viral Nova. What we see here are a few patterns that are worth highlighting. You'll notice imperative words like see, make, do, words that tell you to do something. Visual words appear like video and photos, and we'll talk more about the importance of multimedia in a little bit, but this kind of gives us a clue to start that visual words are going to be really important. Superlatives like the most and the best. You know, we all want to click on the things that are the most shareable, the best list. Audience referencing phrases like make you, when you see. So it's really powerful to be addressed specifically on Twitter and anywhere really. So those you words really work. If you're talking to me, I'm going to be more likely to retweet it. We see the appearance of how-to. We always want to learn things, so that's a good angle to hit sometimes. And then on the right, we've got a list of retweetable words and phrases. So these are specific to retweets, and these come from social media scientist Dan Zarella of HubSpot. So he compared common words and phrases in tweets and retweets to isolate the words that appeared more often in retweets. And so this is his list of the top 20 words and phrases most likely to get retweeted. And some of these patterns repeat. You'll see a lot of audience referencing, you and Twitter, another mention of how to, and a lot of those imperative words that tell you to do something like retweet or share. In fact, Salesforce found that tweets that specifically ask followers to retweet receive 12 times higher retweet rates than those that do not. Now, when retweet is spelled out, the retweet rate is 23 times higher than the average. And when you use the shortened version, the letters RT, the retweet rate is 10 times higher. So still higher, but not quite as high as when you spell the word out. And that is perhaps because maybe people aren't familiar with the letters RT. Once again, as Jimmy said, avoid jargon when you can. So if you can use that full form of retweet, that might help you out there. That study also found that tweets that contain more adverbs and verbs have a higher click-through rate than tweets with more nouns and adjectives. So the general rule of good writing, use strong words, use action words, that tends to follow through on Twitter as well and make your content a little bit more clickable. On to formatting. So when you're just talking with customers, followers, having conversations, responding to folks on Twitter, you'll probably do that in sort of your regular sentence form. But if you happen to be sharing any blog post, the company Conductor polled people on headline format, and they found that people prefer sentence case. And that basically is the first letter of every word in the headline being capitalized, more than they liked lowercase or all caps. So if you're sharing any blog posts, using this kind of format can sort of help set off your content and signify that this is a special kind of piece of content that your followers are seeing on Twitter that they may want to read or favorite or share. So that might be worth testing with your own account just to see how your followers react to that.
So next up are hashtags. You've seen them used everywhere, so let's cover off on a few best practices. First, if you're not familiar what a hashtag is, a hashtag or the pound symbol is used on Twitter to really organize conversations around a specific theme, topic, or idea. And if you're creating a hashtag, you want to keep it short, recognizable by followers, and allows them to easily follow along. If you're using an existing hashtag, ensure you're adding value to the conversation. For instance, when I tweet from @TwitterSmallBiz, I like to use the hashtag smallbiz in our tweets because a lot of the content focuses around helping small businesses.
Awesome. And the volume of hashtags is really important as well. You really want to make sure, as Jimmy said, that you're focusing on specific hashtags where you can really add value and not overdoing it with hashtags. 1 or 2 hashtags can get you up to 2 times more engagement than tweets without hashtags, according to a study by Buddy Media. But when you use more than 2 hashtags, your engagement could actually drop by an average of 17%. So it's important to make sure you're focusing on the hashtags that make the most sense for your business, the most sense for your industry, and you're really being judicious about when to use those and what you can add to the conversation as you use those hashtags. On to length. There's probably no perfect length for a tweet, but research by Track Social, they studied 100 well-known brands popular on Twitter and found that the perfect tweet length for them was right around 100 characters. As we see on the chart here, their analysis saw a spike in retweets among those in the 71 to 100 character range. That's the medium length tweet column in this chart. So, probably not a perfect tweet length, but this research does make a lot of sense. A tweet at that range is long enough for the original poster to say something of value, and it's still short enough for the person retweeting it to add a little bit of their commentary as well. If you can veer toward the shorter side, it might be worth a try for your clicks as well. Tweets shorter than 100 characters get a 70% higher engagement rate, according to Salesforce. So will this work for your brand? It's probably worth a try. The best plan is to really experiment with different links and see what resonates with your audience.
Great. So rich media is also another great way to really drive engagement with your tweets. So you really want to equip your marketing arsenal with photos and videos like Vine to really drive retweets and replies. Research has shown that tweets with photos or videos can drive twice the engagement with users. And as we like to say, we give you 140 characters to start off with, but a photo is worth 1,000 words. So use them regularly in your tweets.
So true. We have found a ton of success at our own Buffer Twitter account with images. This chart you're looking at is from a little study we did. We add lots of images to our tweets from our Buffer Twitter account. It makes a big difference in the engagement rate we get, so much so that last year we decided to do a little study. We took a sample of 100 tweets, including links, from our own Twitter account, and then we compared the engagement averages of tweets with and without images using Buffer's built-in analytics. So what we found, you can kind of see where this is headed when you look at the chart, but the results were pretty astounding. Tweets with images received 18% more click-throughs, 89% more favorites, and 150% more retweets. So they make a huge difference in terms of how people consume your content and what actions they want to take with it. We've also found that images that tell a story within the image itself can also be really powerful. It can't just be an image of anything to get these results. In our case, we really focus on creating visuals that tell a story, visuals that can be passed along on their own, and that's been something that has been really powerful for us and might be worth a try.
So once you get into the routine of tweeting and start using images in your tweets, try running a special promotion to really excite your followers. You could launch something we call a Twixclusive, which is an exclusive offer on Twitter that your followers can't find anywhere else. When you run your offer, use unique coupons to really track your results and reward your customers. So if you have a brick and mortar location, tweet a discount code for followers to redeem at the register. And if you're an online store, send a direct message to followers with a discount code that you can track at checkout. Or try what we call a flock to unlock, which is really a concept to help incentivize followers to spread your message by retweeting or sharing your tweet to unlock exclusive content, like a sale or a special product or early release. To learn more about how to do a Twixclusive or a flock to unlock, you can visit business.twitter.com. So next, it's important to keep in mind that different tweets can be used to achieve various marketing outcomes. We suggest the 80-20 rule, where you focus on content that generates engagement first, then mix in your direct offers. And when you really want to drive more direct response from your tweets, consider these suggestions. So start by simplifying your tweet. Have a compelling offer, and then communicate a sense of urgency. Next, you want to include a strong call to action with a link to your website. Finally, avoid using hashtags or @mentions that may distract users from clicking on your link. Next is our lead generation card. And lead generation cards really make it easy for potential customers to really demonstrate interest in your business. And it's no longer necessary to link your potential customers to a form or even a landing page to retype contact information. So when someone expands a tweet that contains a lead generation card, they will see a description for your offer. Then the user simply clicks once to securely share their contact information with you. And then once all those leads have been collected, you can easily download them from the Twitter Ads UI. And lead generation cards are completely free to create and use in your tweets, but you will need to sign up for a Twitter Ads account first to get started. So now let's cover off on a few FAQs we get asked pretty often regarding the art of tweeting. So the first question is, what day of the week should I tweet on? And our answer is it really depends on the business. When your business first starts tweeting, you should start testing multiple days of the week to see what works best. Saturdays and Sundays may have a higher engagement rate, as that's when most people are not at work and therefore have more free time.
Very true. In fact, there's a lot of evidence in favor of testing out a weekend strategy to see if that might resonate with your audience. Weekend tweets often can have higher click-through rates compared to those posted during other days of the week. As we see in this study from Salesforce, they discovered that Twitter engagement for brands can be up to 17% higher on Saturday and Sunday compared to weekdays. But at the point of this study, not a lot of brands were taking advantage of this. They reported that only 19% of all brand tweets were published on the weekends. So that might be a good opportunity to jump in and see if you can make an impact on the weekends. They found that weekend engagements could be particularly high for a couple of industries, including sports brands, fashion, entertainment, and publishing brands. And just to quickly note, you don't have to give up your weekend to take advantage of this. I think a lot of people think, it might be difficult to sort of plan a posting schedule on the weekends. But there are a lot of solutions out there, like Buffer and many others, that are available to sort of schedule your tweets in advance and let you reap the advantage of posting on the weekends. Though, as Jimmy mentioned, you will want to keep an eye on your replies and participate in the conversation when you can, because it's so much more fun that way. So a little bit more about timing. If you are working with a B2B brand, you may have a slightly different experience when it comes to weekends. You may want to stick with weekdays or start with a smaller experiment on weekends. This is from an Argyle social study, and this study found that weekdays can provide 14% more engagement for B2B brands than weekends do. So you start to see how, there's not a one size fits all for Twitter. You've got to sort of consider your audience, consider what they're doing during the day, consider what their day is like as you make your decisions and set up your scheduling. For B2B, that's a more workplace environment, more work-focused environment. Kind of makes sense that you might want to hit those folks more on a weekday.
So the second question is, what is the best time of day to tweet? And we've seen that there is a 30% greater engagement rate when tweets are published during the day, which is between the hours of 8 a.m. and 7 p.m. And it really makes sense if you consider that the majority of news, store hours, and activities happen during the day. But again, depending on the business, test sending out tweets both during the day and evening hours to see what kind of response they get. And also, schedule your tweets or send out live tweets based on different time zones to see what works best for you.
Definitely true. So the daytime is going to be, the sort of busy hours for Twitter, and specifically the afternoon and evening, early evening, can be a good time to see more engagement and more clicks. These stats we're looking at here are from Kissmetrics, and they say that retweets have been shown to be highest around 5 p.m. and that noon and 6 p.m. are the best times to post for a higher click-through rate. Now, another study on optimizing for clicks from Bitly showed that 1 to 3 p.m. is the best time to tweet. So you can start to see that a lot of this advice is, conflicting. Different studies find out different conclusions. But at this point, it's all kind of staying in that afternoon to early evening range, which might be worth testing for you. All these findings can get really complicated, but the main thing is to put yourself in your follower's shoes, considering the patterns of your audience. What's their day like? When are they busy? When are they bored? When are they most likely to want to hear from you? If you want to know something a little more specific about your audience, you can also try a tool like Tweeriad, Social Bro, or Follower Wonk that analyzes your account and gives you some key times that you can test and shoot for. You can integrate those times right into your Buffer account if you happen to be a Buffer user as well. And as we're talking about thinking about our audience's day, what they're doing, don't forget mobile. There are a ton of users who primarily access Twitter on a mobile device. And these people are a little bit different than your average Twitter user. They're very likely to be on Twitter during their commute. They're very likely to be on Twitter during school or work hours. And these folks really might be the ones that you are looking for your business to reach. I have some really interesting stats on them. They're 44% more likely to click on links. They're 66% more likely to retweet than an average user. And they also tend to follow more brands, and they're 53% more likely to recall seeing an ad on Twitter than the average user. So I know I threw a ton of stats at you right there, but it's really interesting to think about sort of optimizing for the mobile user, particularly if you're the kind of brand where mobile makes sense. If you're a product that they're going to sort of grab at the end of their workday, or a restaurant that they're going to want to drop by on their way home from work. So it's really important to think about your mobile strategy as you think about your entire holistic Twitter strategy.
So next up is, how often should I tweet each day? And again, it depends on your business. You'll definitely come across businesses that tweet 1 per day or 20 times per day, and they'll still see good engagement. Again, it really depends on several factors, but the main takeaway is for you to really develop a cadence of tweeting. There isn't a right number of tweets per day, but your followers should know that they're going to get regular updates from you.
And it might turn out that more frequency could equal more engagement for you. Consistency is the best plan no matter what you have time for. Just be consistent about it. But it's also really okay to tweet as often as you have the content to support it and the bandwidth within your organization to get back to people and talk with them. Twitter is a high volume channel, and it really helps to tweet enough to get you noticed in the stream. What we're looking at here is a study from Track Social. They looked at 100 well-known brands that are active on Twitter to put together this data. And what we can generally glean from it is that as brands tweet more, the total number of retweets generally increases. There are a few different little spikes you can see on this slide when responses jumped at different volumes, like around 4 to 5 tweets a day, around 11 to 15 tweets a day, around 21 to 30 tweets a day. And the general rule here is just make the most of the time that you do have. If you are a small business owner with a million things to do, you might be better off trying for that smaller tweet zone, maybe 3 or 5 tweets a day, just to make the time of that you have. If you have the time and the content to post more often, tweeting regularly is probably only going to help you. It's going to help you establish yourself as an authority. It's going to give you more opportunities to engage with your fans, and it's going to give you a chance to get more total response. Greater volume is generally going to correlate to greater total response. So don't be afraid that you are tweeting too much. As long as you've got great content and you're following all the general rules that Jimmy has talked about, you should be really good to go there. One little caveat is that you might want to space out your links a little bit. As we mentioned, most followers are really fine with a healthy amount of brand tweets throughout the day. But social media scientist Dan Zarella, and we're back to him, found that the higher number of links and account tweets in a given time frame, the lower the click-through rate on each individual link. So if you want to get your tweets noticed and retweeted, you might want to try experimenting with your posting rate and mixing up those engagement tweets that we talked about, those tweets that sort of start a conversation or show the inside scoop about your business. You might want to mix those up with your more salesy type posts with links so that each link you post gets a little bit more attention. At Buffer, we tend to do this. We'll spend a few minutes in the morning finding high-quality social media tips and tools posts because that's what we're interested in. We'll drop those into our Buffer queue and space them out and sort of mix them up with our own content, questions, conversational posts, photos of what we're doing that day. Since Buffer queues up your posts and space them out for you, it can provide a really good opportunity to get your mix for the day or your week just right so that you can maximize your schedule.
So finally, one of the last questions we get asked often is, what should my business tweet about? So we've put together a few ideas to help you get started. So, for example, on Monday, you could launch a Twitter-only promotion for your followers. Tweet an online code or even a secret word for customers to use when they visit your business. On Tuesdays, give people a behind-the-scenes tour of your business by highlighting your products, where they're made from, and how the materials are sourced. On Wednesday, you can create a regular series of tweets that are informative or surprising, such as tips. And on Thursday, you can retweet a few positive customer reviews or industry-related news. And finally, Fridays, give customers a glimpse into your workplace culture. Use photos or buying videos to really highlight your colleagues, employees hard at work or having fun.
Great tips. I'm hearing that you guys are not able to see the slides when Jimmy is speaking, so I'm just going to give you guys a minute to check out this awesome content calendar and the tweet templates over here. These are all really great ideas. It's always good to sort of like have a plan in mind as you start tweeting. It makes the days much easier to plan for, and there's no surprise panic moments. All right, Jimmy, you want to talk about measurement?
Yes. So once you get into the routine of setting up your content calendar, you want to start thinking about how you will measure your progress or success on Twitter. And we'd like to tell people to really start by asking yourself what you want to achieve. So is it a bigger brand presence? Do you want to drive more website traffic? Or do you have a specific promotion you're gearing up for? Whichever goal you may have, you can also run several campaigns simultaneously to target those goals. You can raise brand awareness with one set of tweets while driving traffic to your blog with the other. And here are a few metrics for you to consider to help you measure success on Twitter. Follower growth is pretty simple. How many new followers you get every day, week, or month. Follower quality engagement is how many people interact with your account, your tweets, your content. Reach, how many people are actually favoriting or retweeting your content. Clicks, pretty self-explanatory there. And finally, conversions, how many users sign up for your service or even buy your product. From there, track your results on a weekly basis using third-party tools like Buffer.
Excellent. I'll give you guys a second to check out that measurement slide. A lot of good metrics there. And I'll go ahead and say that I'll post these on SlideShare as soon as we get done here, and you'll be able to check all of the slides out, see anything you missed, see all the sources that we are citing here. And the more you tweet, the faster you'll be able to learn what works and what doesn't in terms of your metrics, in terms of what you want to optimize for. You can test different headlines, different days and times, different types of media, and lots more to isolate and find out what really resonates the most with your audience. And all you need to do this testing is a way to easily track the metrics of all the tweets that you're sending. You can do that through a URL shortener like bit.ly, or you can do it with Buffer, which is what we are looking at here. I'll show you how we do it at Buffer with this slide. So this is an example of us testing timing. And how we do that is we'll take one piece of content, we'll choose 3 to 4 different times to test it on the same day. If we can, to keep the data as consistent as possible, we will try to make the tweets very similar each time, just a headline and a link, because if you add a hashtag or a photo to one, you're skewing your results a little bit. Maybe that had something to do with that tweet's pickup. And what we'll do is intersperse those similar tweets with other types of posts that are perhaps more conversational in tone, so maybe a quote or a question, something like that. We'll let those run, and then the following day we'll check our analytics and see how the tweets compare for clicks and favorites and retweets. And from then we'll just optimize our schedule based on what we have seen and repeat on a regular basis and just kind of keep testing. As your content changes and you get more followers, it's really important to make sure that you're always tweeting at the right time. So you got to keep that testing going. And we do the same thing with headlines. We always try to have a handful of different headline ideas for each post, and we'll test variations by tweeting out the article 3 or so times throughout the day with a different title each time. Ideally, the closer together you can post them, like all in the morning or all in the afternoon, the more reliable the data is going to be. Buffer is going to generate a different URL for each tweet, so you can easily go back and look at that A/B test, track the results in the analytics to see which headline performed best. So here we pitted an ultimate list superlative type headline against a number headline, 17 unique places to find great content to share. And that number headline definitely beat out our superlative headline, which I maybe wouldn't have guessed when I put those in the Buffer queue. So it's really cool to be able to test, get that real-time feedback. And often we'll actually even go back into the blog post itself. Once we realize which headline has won, we'll go back into the blog post and change that headline to reflect what we have found. And once you get started testing, you're going to find a lot of different elements that you want to test. Hashtags, formatting, timing, headlines. There's a lot you can do with some quick A/B testing to improve your performance. So that wraps it up for us. We hope you know a little bit more about creating must-click content on Twitter, including writing great tweets, timing it right, measuring and testing. To keep learning on these topics, we've got a few resources for you. I'll start with the Buffer bits. We've got a blog at blog.bufferapp.com that we'd love for you to check out. We do a lot of this science, data, stats and studies type content. We're always really interested in learning learning more there. And you can follow us at Buffer on Twitter. And we also have another blog called Open, where we talk about what we're learning as we grow the company, transparency, productivity, stuff like that. So that would be a great one for you to check out as well. And Jimmy has some resources on Twitter for you too.
Yeah, for additional tips and best practices on tweeting and optimizing your profile on Twitter, you can visit our website at business.twitter.com. For the latest news and product releases, you can follow us at our latest blog, blog.twitter.com/small-business. And you can always follow us on Twitter at TwitterSmallBiz.
Awesome. And we have a few extra special resources for you guys. Buffer would love to invite all of you to try a free month of Buffer for Business. So you can tweet consistently, build out that content calendar we talked about, perform those simple A/B tests that we just went over, and really discover what works best for you and for your audience. So we would love to have you give it a try. I would love to hear what you think about it. You can go to bufferapp.com/TwitterBiz right there for you to sign up for that special offer. And there's also a little bit more. Jimmy? All right. Jimmy has a special offer as well, a $50 Twitter ads credit. And you can get that by going to twitter.com/TwitterSmallBiz. So we would love for you to take advantage of both of those offers. Let us know what you think. We're very interested to hear. And as I mentioned before, I know some of you have not been able to see all of these slides, so I will definitely be able to put those right on SlideShare right away. You'll be able to download that great content calendar. You'll be able to see all the sources that we've cited and get a lot more resources. Jimmy, you want to talk a little bit more about the Twitter ads credit?
Yeah, so it's a $50 ad credit to use with Twitter ads. If you visit us at Twitter Small Biz right now, you'll see the latest tweet with a link. If you click on the link and just hit the Apply Now button, it'll submit your information to us, and then we'll get back to you in a few days to let you know if you qualify for the credit. Also, if you look at the actual link, that's a good example of a lead generation card that you could actually create for yourself.
Awesome. So we have gone a little bit long, but we would love to answer your questions. Let me see if I can find some. All right. The first question is, when you refer to best times to tweet, is that just in U.S. time zones? That's a great question. A lot of these studies of big brands tend to be focused on the United States. So I tend to, when I get that information, check the sort of how they conducted the study to see what they're doing there. That can give you a lot of good information. Generally, what you can do if you don't have that information available is try those times as they list them, and then try them in your own time zone. So do that time zone conversion and test both those versions to see which one works better. Jimmy, you have any input on best times to tweet in U.S. time zones?
No, I completely agree with you. I think it's always great to test different time zones and see what works for you.
Got it. Next we've got, is it good or bad to ask followers to follow you? So a Twitter etiquette question. Maybe Jimmy's got some thoughts on that one.
To be honest, I think it varies. I think, when you first start out creating your Twitter profile and you really want to build a strong follower base, I don't think it's a bad thing to necessarily ask people, you're like, hey, are you following us on Twitter? Did you know that we have a Twitter account and you can find the latest news updates about our business on Twitter? So I think it's perfectly fine to ask, but don't always lead in with that question every time you're speaking to your customers.
Excellent. Let's see. When it comes to higher tweet volumes, is it okay if they are in bursts, or do they need to be spaced out? It depends on, I think some timing of, a heavier time period of tweeting can work for you, I would see how your customers are reacting to that. I tend to want to space them out a little bit, and perhaps that's because I work at Buffer, and that's kind of our whole deal. I like that philosophy. But if you find that there's a time where your customers are particularly active and particularly receptive to what you're saying, then I think you should definitely take advantage of that time period. It comes down to testing and making sure that you're available when your audience wants to hear from you. Jimmy, you got
And
thoughts?
I totally agree. I think it's good to space out your content, but depending if you're having a event, a new product release, those kind of those types of things cause natural spikes in conversation. So sometimes it's okay to have a stream of tweets going out. We do it for live chats. We do it when we're attending conferences, or even when we do webinars like this one. So I think it's just based on the situation. If you have something that's a little more high profile and really gets followers excited, it's okay to send out more tweets than spreading it out over the course of the day.
Great point. Another question, is retweeting other people's posts beneficial to me as a brand? That's a great question and an interesting question. I tend to think, and this is based on nothing but my own experiences, that retweeting other people's posts can be really beneficial to you as a brand, particularly if you're talking about, people who say positive things about you. You don't want to retweet those, all day and night, because that could get a little much, but, occasionally throwing that into your content mix could be good. Sharing other people's content in your industry can sometimes help you form a relationship that could benefit you. Sharing people who post about complementary industries can be a big help to you. And if you're a small business that can't create a ton of your own content, I think it's a great strategy to find the people who are creating the best content about your industry and sharing that information, because that's the kind of stuff that your audience might want to know, and they'll probably think it's really nice that you're going out of your way to find that great content and sharing it with them. Jim, you want to add on to that anything?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like, retweeting is all about sharing great content that other people should be aware of and their own followers want to see. So I think it's a great source for really getting a lot of content from influencers, industry experts when you're first starting out. But let's try to find a balance. People follow your business to learn more about the latest news and products about your business as well. So just kind of find a balance between generating your own content and retweeting others. But like Courtney said, if it's positive reviews and interactions from customers, those can always be retweeted.
Excellent. This one is an interesting question. The company this person manages for social media has a product in common with someone else. How can they differentiate themselves from the competition on Twitter? That is a really good question. Jimmy, you want to take that one? You got thoughts there?
I think it's really about highlighting, what your service or product does so well and how it differentiates from the market and how it stands out from other competitors. I think, giving people a behind-the-scenes look at the people, the product, the value of your business can only help to really differentiate and help you to stand out than other people. A lot of products may be similar on Twitter, but at the same time, the way that they approach their Twitter presence can really help them to stand out. Using photos, using videos, giving testimonials, highlighting case studies, all of that will really help to really differentiate you from competitors.
Awesome thoughts there. I think a lot of it has to do with voice as well. A lot of people point to a company like Oreo being really, really good at Twitter. And there are, probably a lot of cookies that are like Oreo, but Oreo has a very distinctive voice on social media. They've got a very distinctive thing they do, and people really respond to it. It's fun, it's playful. So depending on the industry you're in, you can really sort of take some initiative with your social media presence and create something that is really special that your followers feel included in and part of, that can also help you differentiate yourself from competitors. Another question, I think we have time for maybe a couple more. How much is too much when it comes to repeating content? So I assume we're asking here like posting the same thing or a similar thing multiple times. Jimmy, what do you think about that one?
So I think it varies. I think sometimes if it's really great content, you can potentially share similar content multiple times just to hit different audiences in different times of the day. But I think, with the help of the content calendar that we've kind of outlined in the presentation, it can really help you to generate your own content on a weekly basis that you can apply throughout the year. So I think, start testing out with, certain topics and themes that you can do on a weekly basis and see how, what reaction you get from your customers, and from there building off into like additional content. But, it's okay to reshare content, but, balance it out.
Yeah, testing is definitely the way to go there. And I'll also say that there are ways to repeat the same theme of content without repeating the same exact content. So if you want to share a blog post multiple times, maybe you'll do it once with the headline. Maybe the second time you can pull out an interesting photo. Maybe the third time you can pull an infographic or pull a quote from the article or pull an interesting stat from the article. So there are a lot of different ways you can frame your content so that it feels different, even if the person who is seeing it has seen it once before. And it's also, you've got to remember that Twitter is like a stream. Most people aren't sort of living in Twitter every single moment of their day. Some people are, but a lot of times, they're just dipping in when they have a few minutes between a meeting, or they're checking out Twitter on their phone while they're on the train on the way home. So I don't worry a ton about being too repetitive to the audience, because there are a ton of different audiences on Twitter. It's all about just testing and finding those times that are right for you. I think we have time for one more question. How do you know which hashtags your audience is using? Great question. I bet Jimmy has some insight on that one. Or not. All right, I'll take that one. How do you know which hashtags your audience is using? A lot of times you can use the Twitter search or Twitter advanced search. Use both of those, and I would just put in some like key phrases that are important to your business, what you do, what your product is, other names people might call your product, industries that you're involved in, and I would just kind of poke around Twitter and see what I can see there as far as hashtags. You may find that there are sort of like weekly chats that go on surrounding your topic. You may find that there are different ways of referring to what you do or your industry. Just kind of poking around that, the Twitter search and advanced search is probably the best way to address that. On Buffer, we recently did a post all about hashtags that has a lot of really interesting tools that you can use to sort of identify hashtags for your brand. And I'm going to throw that one into the Google Plus conversation as well as the YouTube conversation, so you guys can check that one out if it would be helpful to you. And I think that's about all the questions we have time for. We really, really appreciate you guys being here. It's been a whole lot of fun. I'm sorry that some of you weren't able to see some of the slides. What I'm going to do is run to SlideShare and put these up there right away. And I will also put that link in the Google Plus and YouTube channels, so you'll be able to check those out whenever you want, get all those sources, download all those great resources, and make sure that you take advantage of the Twitter special offer as well as the Buffer special offer. We would love to have you give it a try and let us know what you think. Thanks so much for being here. We really appreciate it. We'll keep the conversation going on Twitter, and hope to see you again soon. Thanks. Bye.